The sky of Alaris was made of light. Every night, 2 pale moons floated over crystal towers, shining on the silver streets below. Alaris was the jewel of the Thalva Empire, a world where alien cities were built like flowing rivers of glass. It was here, on this peaceful world, that a royal wedding was about to change the galaxy forever. Princess Sira stood on the high balcony of the royal hall, dressed in shimmering blue silk that flowed like water. She was tall and elegant, her skin glowing with a faint silver light, the mark of the Thalva royal bloodline. Below her, a large crowd of nobles filled the courtyard. Their long, curved head crests sparkled with golden gems, their robes bright and rich. Music filled the air, soft and flowing like wind through trees. And standing beside her was Elias Grant, a human. He wore a simple black suit with clean lines. His hair was dark, his expression calm, and his brown eyes steady. He was not tall compared to the Thalva, nor did he wear jewels or armor like the other royal guests. Yet something about him was quiet and solid. It's like a mountain that didn't need to prove its strength. The Thalva nobles whispered behind their hands. Some covered their laughter. Others frowned openly. "Why him?" One of them murmured. "He is from a small world." "A simple world," said another. "Humans are—" Soft Sira heard them, but she did not turn. She had made her choice. Among all the suitors, warriors, scholars, and royal princes, she had chosen Elias. It was not for his wealth, nor for power. It was because of the way he looked at the stars. When others saw conquest or glory, Elias saw wonder, and she loved that. The high priest raised his silver staff and began the ceremony. His voice echoed across the hall. "2 hearts, 2 worlds, joined in light," he said. "Let unity rise above distance." Elias and Sira joined hands. His skin was warm against hers. The crowd grew quiet. Even the ones who doubted her choice could feel the weight of this moment. It was the first time in Thalva history that a human would join the royal family. When the vows were spoken and the rings exchanged, golden lights filled the sky like thousands of tiny suns. The guests cheered politely. Elias smiled gently at Sira, not proud or loud, just calm. It made her feel safe in a way she had never felt before. Later, during the feast, Sira noticed how Elias stood a little away from the main crowd. He did not drink much. He did not try to impress anyone. He simply observed the world around him, the palace walls, the night sky, the patterns of the music. She walked over to him, her gown whispering across the floor. "You're not used to this kind of event," she said softly. He smiled. "On Earth, weddings are simpler. Less shining towers. Fewer floating lights. You don't like it?" "I do," he said. "It's beautiful. Just not my world." Sira looked up at the stars. "Now it's our world." He glanced at her, and something deep moved in his eyes. It wasn't fear. It wasn't doubt. It was a quiet strength she still didn't fully understand. Before she could ask, a loud horn echoed through the night. The music stopped, the lights dimmed, and the sky darkened not because of clouds, but because something massive was approaching. The alarm bells began to ring through the palace. The silver towers turned red with warning lights. The crowd's soft whispers turned to uneasy murmurs. The palace guards, tall figures in smooth armor, ran to their posts. On the horizon, a fleet of black shapes blocked the stars. They moved like living shadows. Their hulls were covered in strange moving patterns, and their engines burned a cold, dark blue. These were not merchant ships. They were warships. Sira felt her heart tighten. She recognized the design immediately. "The Krivak swarm," she whispered. The Krivak were an ancient enemy of the Thalva, powerful, mysterious, and feared across many systems. They had not appeared in years. No one expected them to return tonight, of all nights. The royal advisor rushed to the princess. "Your Highness, their flagship is entering orbit. They're demanding to speak to the court." Sira raised her chin. "Then we will hear them." A great holoscreen opened in the middle of the courtyard, and the image of the Krivak queen appeared. She was tall and cloaked in dark layers of living armor, that shimmered like oil on water. Her crown looked like it was grown rather than built, and her many black eyes gleamed like cold stars. Princess of Thalva, the queen's voice echoed like thunder. Your people are weak. Your fleets are scattered. Tonight I offer you mercy. Surrender your crown and your world, or I will drown your star in my shadow. The nobles gasped. Some stepped back. A few already looked ready to flee. The Thalva Empire had not fought the Kryvak in generations. Their fleet was far away, protecting distant colonies. Here on Alaris, their defenses were light. Sira forced her voice to stay steady. This is a day of unity. You come with threats. The queen's many eyes narrowed. Your unity means nothing to me. The image vanished. The enemy's ships began to move closer, their engines glowing brighter. Inside the royal hall, panic began to grow. Nobles argued. Advisors shouted. Soldiers tried to organize the defense. But everyone knew the truth. They were not prepared. Sira turned, expecting Elias to look frightened. But he didn't. He stood calmly near the window. Watching the Black Fleet approach like a man studying the tide, she walked up to him. You should go to the shelters. It's not safe here. He shook his head slowly. No, I'm staying with you. This is not your war. Elias turned to her. For the first time, there was a strange light in his eyes. Not fear, but something powerful and old. Sira, he said quietly, I didn't come here because it was safe. I came here because of you. She opened her mouth to answer, but before she could speak, the palace shook. A deep rumble moved through the floor. Outside, the Kryvak ships were forming a ring around the planet. The royal advisor rushed in again. Princess. They are blocking the sun. The energy grid is failing. Our defenses are down. The nobles began to panic louder now. A few guards tried to keep order, but their own faces showed uncertainty. They were brave, but they knew the truth. The Thalva could not match the Kryvak fleet. Sira clenched her hands. We cannot surrender. A voice behind her spoke softly. Then we don't. She turned. It was Elias. He walked forward, past the guards and the nobles, till he stood in the center of the royal hall. He was still in his simple black suit. He didn't wear armor. He didn't carry a weapon. Yet the room grew quiet as he stood there, as if something invisible filled the air around him. Elias, Sira said, confused. What are you doing? He looked up at the domed ceiling, then at the stars beyond. I hoped I'd never need this, he said softly. But it seems I was wrong. The ground beneath him began to glow faintly. The nobles gasped. A pattern appeared on the marble flora, perfect circle made of golden light. Strange symbols danced in the air, wrapping around him like gentle ribbons of energy. What is this? The advisor whispered. Sira stared. She had never seen this language before. It wasn't Thalva. It wasn't Kryvak. It was something older, something hidden. Elias closed his eyes. A low hum filled the hall, soft at first, then stronger. The lights around the room flickered, then brightened as if they were answering him. Outside, a few of the Kryvak ships paused their movement, their scanners picking up something they didn't understand. The nobles took a step back. Even the guards hesitated. No one spoke. Elias opened his eyes again, and for a brief moment, they were not brown anymore. They glowed faint gold, like the heart of a star. His calm voice carried through the hall. It's time, he said, to stop pretending. Sira's breath caught in her throat. For months she had wondered about Ilias's quiet strength, his strange way of seeing the world, his calm when everyone else panicked. Now she realized he wasn't just calm. He was ready. The golden circle beneath him pulsed, sending out a soft wave of light that spread through the hall. It didn't hurt anyone. It was gentle and warm, but powerful. The palace systems flickered to life. The failing shields hummed. Old defense arrays, ones the Thalva didn't even know, began to light up in the distant towers. The Kryvak fleet slowed. The alien queen leaned forward on her throne, sensing something had changed. She could feel it even from orbit. A presence. Power. Not Thalva. Something else. Something human. Above the palace, high in orbit, ancient satellites that had slept for centuries woke up one by one. They were not Thalva technology. They were Terran. A soft golden network spread across the night sky, invisible to most eyes but very real. The Kryvac sensors picked it up and sent warnings across their fleet. Something was rising. Something the galaxy had forgotten. Sira stared at Elias. "Who are you?" she whispered. He looked at her gently. "Still your husband?" he said. "But also something more." And then the golden circle flared brighter, casting long shadows on the faces of every Thalva in the hall. The nobles, who had mocked the human groom, now stared in silence. Their world was changing in front of them. They could not look away. The Kryvac fleet prepared to strike. The palace trembled, and Elias took his first step forward. End of part. Cliffhanger. The unknown human power awakens as the Kryvac queen watches from orbit, realizing she may not be the strongest one here. The royal hall of Alaris stood silent. Every noble, every guard, every servant watched Elias as the golden light around him grew brighter. The once quiet human now stood like a pillar of calm in the middle of a storm. His black suit fluttered in a wind that wasn't real, and his golden eyes reflected the power rising inside him. Outside the palace, the Kryvac fleet moved like a wall of night. Hundreds of dark ships formed a tight circle around the planet. The enemy believed they had already won. The Thalva defenses were weak, their fleet far away. No one had ever challenged the Kryvac swarm and lived to tell the story. But this time was different. Older than the stars, Elias raised one hand slowly, as if touching something invisible. Above the palace, the old Terran satellites answered his call. These satellites had been placed here centuries ago, long before the Thalva Empire rose. Back when humans still traveled as explorers, not conquerors. They were part of something secret, something only a few on Earth even remembered. As he moved his fingers, the satellites came alive. Rings of soft golden light stretched across the night sky like ripples in water. It looked beautiful, like dawn rising over a sleeping world. The Thalva nobles stared in wonder. "What is happening?" one of them whispered. The royal advisor shook his head. "This is not Thalva technology." Sira stood beside Elias now. She could feel the warm air around him, soft but strong. He looked the same, and yet completely different. For the first time, she understood why he always looked at the stars the way he did. He didn't just look at them. He remembered them. "Elias," she whispered. "What are you doing?" He looked at her gently. "I'm keeping a promise." The Kryvac queen high, above Alaris. The Kryvac queen sat on her throne of black metal, inside the command chamber of her flagship. Around her, hundreds of officers monitored their screens. Their scanners picked up energy levels they had never seen before. "Report," the queen ordered. "Your Majesty," one officer said nervously. "A network is forming around the planet. Unknown origin. Power readings are rising fast. It is not Thalva." The queen narrowed her eyes. "Then what is it?" We believe it is human," the officer whispered. The room fell silent for many years. The Kryvac had considered humans a simple race. Curious, emotional, but weak. They were known for trade and art, not power. But this reading, this golden network kit, felt ancient and deep. Like something that had been waiting a long time. The queen leaned forward, her voice sharp. "Target the palace. End this now." But as the command left her lips, something happened. Their targeting systems froze. Their energy weapons would not respond. The golden network around Ilaris had locked their systems like gentle but unbreakable hands. Their engines dimmed. Their shields flickered. Every ship in the fleet felt the same invisible weight pressing on them, quiet but firm. The queen frowned. For the first time in many years, she felt unsure. A promise remembered back in the royal hall. Elias walked slowly to the edge of the balcony. He looked up at the sky where the Kryvac fleet blocked the stars. His calm voice carried across the courtyard, though he spoke softly. "When I came here," he said, "I only wanted to live quietly. But there are some things you cannot ignore. Some things you must protect." He closed his eyes. The golden light spread further, flowing into the ground, the air, and the sky. The palace systems, which had failed earlier, suddenly came alive. Holographic shields formed around the towers. The old Thalva lights brightened as if the planet itself was waking up. Elias was not controlling the network with force. He was guiding it like a river returning to the ocean. Sira stepped forward. "You knew this power was inside you?" "Not power," he said. "Responsibility. The hidden project long ago, before the Thalva rose to power. Humans had built something called Project Aegis. It was not a weapon to destroy. It was a shield to protect. The Terrans believed the galaxy would one day face something dark, something bigger than wars and borders. So they built silent guardians around certain stars' sleeping systems that waited for the day they would be needed. Again, Alaris was one of those stars. Elias was not a soldier. He was an engineer, chosen not for strength but for understanding. He was trained not to attack, but to awaken. The Kryvak Queen did not know that the golden curtain, the golden network above, Laris expanded until it covered the entire planet like a soft curtain of light. The Kryvak fleet, once free and confident, now found themselves unable to move forward. Their ships were trapped in invisible paths they could not break. The nobles gasped as they saw it from the palace windows. "It was like watching night turn to day. It's beautiful," whispered a young Thalva noble. "It's human." Another asked. Sira stood beside Elias, her eyes wide. She had grown up believing that her people were the most advanced in the galaxy. Now, she was learning that humanity had secrets no one else had ever imagined. The Queen's warning. The Kryvak Queen stared at the bright net outside her ship. Her black eyes glimmered with cold light. She opened a channel to the planet. A giant image of her face appeared above the royal hall. "Human," she said slowly. "What have you done?" Elias looked up at her. He did not look afraid. "I've reminded the stars," he answered calmly. "You think your light can stop me?" she asked. Her voice was cold, but beneath it, there was a trace of something else in certainty. "It's not about stopping you," Elias said. "It's about protecting what matters." The Queen stared at him. This human did not shout. He did not threaten, but his quiet words felt heavier than any weapon. The calm storm, the Kryvak fleet tried to move again, but the golden network responded like water around a stone. Their ships slowed, their systems dimmed. Their massive engines, built to conquer, were now silent against something they could not touch. Elias lifted his hand again. The sky shimmered as the golden curtain formed gentle spirals above the Kryvak ships. It was not an attack. It was a reminder they could not win this way. The Thalva nobles, who had once whispered that humans were weak, now stood in awe. The royal advisor slowly fell to his knees, whispering, "We are seeing history." Hera looked at Elias, her heart full. She had always loved his quiet nature. Now she understood the depth behind it. "You are incredible," she whispered. He smiled softly. "I'm just human." A queen's choice on the Kryvak flagship, silence filled the command chamber. The Queen rose slowly from her throne. She was proud, powerful, and feared by many, but she was not foolish. She could feel the power in this golden light. It was not cruel or wild. It was calm, patient, and endless. If she continued, her fleet would be trapped completely. She could not fight something she didn't understand. She sent a message down to Alaris. "Human," she said. "What is it that you want?" Elias answered, "We want to live in peace. If you cannot give that, then at least do no harm here." The Queen stared at him for a long moment. No one had ever spoken to her like this. Not with fear. Not with pride. Just calm truth. Then, slowly, she raised one of her hands. "Stand down," she ordered her fleet. A wave of surprise moved through her ships, but no one questioned her. One by one, the Kryvak ships turned away from the planet, their dark engines burning softly as they moved out of the golden net. The sky returns as the Kryvak ships left orbit. The golden light around Alaris began to soften. The sky cleared. The 2 moons of Alaris shone once again. The stars returned brighter than before. The nobles in the palace let out breaths they didn't know they were holding. Some cried quietly. Others just stood in silence, their eyes on the human who had changed everything. The royal advisor stepped forward, bowing deeply. "Elias Grant of Earth," he said, voice shaking, "you have saved us." But Elias shook his head. "Not saved. Just protected." The Thalva guard saluted. The nobles followed. For the first time, humanity was not seen as weak or small. It was seen as something powerful, quietly powerful. A new beginning later that night. After the palace settled, and the stars shone peacefully, Sira and Elias stood together on the same balcony where their wedding had begun. The wind was soft. The towers glowed faintly. "You could have told me," Sira said gently. "I didn't want to be a symbol," Elias replied. "I just wanted to be your partner." She looked up at the stars. "You're more than that now," he smiled, looking at her with that same quiet strength. "Maybe, but with you, I can still just be me." Sira leaned closer. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "And I'm proud of what humans are." Elias looked at the stars again. For centuries, humans had been seen as dreamers. Now, they were remembered as something else too. Protectors, far above, the ancient Terran satellites went back to sleep. Their golden light faded, leaving behind only the soft glow of moonlight. The galaxy would speak of this day for years. The day the Krivic Queen came to conquer and left in silence. The Queen's thoughts, in her ship. Far from Alaris, the Krivic Queen stood alone by the star window. She watched the golden glow fade from the distant planet. She had seen many warriors, many weapons, many battles, but never something like this. A quiet power. A storm without sound. She whispered to herself, "Humans are not what we thought." Epilogue. The legend begins. The Thalva Empire would tell this story for generations. The nobles who had laughed would speak with respect. The young would grow up hearing of the day of quiet. Humans stood before the stars and did not bow. Elias and Sira walked down the empty halls of the palace. There were no more alarms. No more fear.